Imagine the horror of your life ruined through false accusations. This is something that's increasingly becoming a problem in today's world due to issues in computer security. Recent Florida Herald Tribune story spoke about a man, Mitchell Liddell, whose computer was used illicitly and without his knowledge to download child pornography. Now, this horrible situation was mitigated through the FBI. However, the potential damage to Mitchell Liddell's life was extreme. Now, computer expert Tony Bradley, who's the writer of Essential Computer Security blog, as well as a security consultant for Fortune 500 companies, highlights some essential myths regarding computer security. Two myths that I really liked were, all you need is antivirus software. And the other was, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Now, these two myths are so prevalent that they're practically computer security fallacies that are used by almost a majority of computer users. Now, the truth of the matter is that protecting your computer involves much more than this. It involves installing and keeping antivirus software, keeping that software up to date, as well as keeping your web browsers and Office software up to date. Now, most importantly, however, is the ability to stay vigilant and stay diligent in day-to-day interactions, because really that is the first defense against computer viruses and computer security threats, is our own common sense. Now, when you install antivirus software, you're not actually installing a piece of software that can detect when a virus is on your computer right off the bat and remove it. What you're actually installing is a piece of software that has been loaded with what are called definitions. Now, these definitions tell the software what specific viruses are. However, if a virus is new or you haven't updated your antivirus software, you're still unprotected. Therefore, you need to choose the right antivirus software, for one, because a company that keeps their definitions up to date is key. Doesn't matter if it's free. There's plenty of free antivirus software, for example, Microsoft Security Essentials, which I personally use in my home and in Office. Now, that brings me to my next point. Keeping things up to date doesn't just mean your antivirus software, because even if you keep your antivirus software up to date, it is still possible that a new threat can come out and infect you before the security community has time to react. Therefore, when using your web browser and your Office software, it's very important to keep these up to date as well, because more and more we are seeing hackers and oligarchs people use computers as an attack threat, and not only just through downloaded software, which is the traditional antivirus threat, but through email attachments, Word documents, and in particular Adobe PDF documents. In fact, CNET recently reported that Adobe PDF exploits have been on the rise 30% over the past 5 years. Now, this means you cannot ignore the possibility that a file coming to you may in fact be infected. Therefore, even if you know the person you're receiving your file from, it's important that you inspect the file. Never open or link a unsolicited file, because you may not know whether or not the information you received and link you received actually comes from the person that's sending it, particularly in an impersonal email with very little details, which is a common source of spam and viruses. Now, this applies to every piece of software you use, really, because theoretically any piece of software you use can be a threat and an attack vector for a hacker. Now, of course, the most common software is the software that's most targeted. However, any piece of software you have which offers an automatic updates feature should be enabled. Please, always enable your automatic updates, because just because it's not broke doesn't mean you don't need to fix it. Now, this brings me back to the last point here regarding your diligence. You need to be careful when you're using your computer day to day. As I spoke of before, oftentimes you'll receive email messages that may appear to be from someone you know, when the reality is the email message is an automatically generated spam message. Sometimes they just want your personal information. Other times they want to infect your computer. And even more rarely, though still possible, an actual targeted attack is always possible. Therefore, just because you don't use the computer often doesn't mean you should have insufficient knowledge or insufficient protections regarding your personal information, because that could be in the hands of other people. Therefore, anytime you go to a website, you need to make sure that when you fill in your personal information, you only fill in what is absolutely required. And, if at all possible, use a work address or P.O. box. Because this way, this keeps your personal home information out of the hands of potential hackers. Because just because the company that you're downloading or buying from, such as Amazon or eBay, is a trusted company, doesn't mean that company isn't vulnerable. And this boils down, again, to the diligence in computing. Now, you need to be careful with all your information, as I spoke of, because of these threats. And just because you might not be infected doesn't mean someone you're giving your information to isn't infected. So therefore, these key points really apply to everyone. Anyone that uses a computer today, which is basically everybody. Now, part of this diligence is knowing what to look for, because you can't just be diligent if you don't know what to look for. Key point is when you are in the address bar, make sure it's the site you're supposed to be at. Make sure, again, the link you clicked is the link you thought you clicked, and from the person you thought it came from. So once again, to reiterate, protecting your computer is much more than just installing antivirus and forgetting it. It's installing the software, it's keeping it up to date, and it's keeping all your software up to date. The rest is common sense and is up to you. So, if you want to be safe and protect yourself from possible disasters such as the one Mitchell Riddell potentially faced, it's important that you use